5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Top. Allumage P80, décollage.
On the 11th of February 2015, the European Space Agency's IXV spaceplane splashed down in the Pacific Ocean. It was the culmination of many years of experiments and tests that changed the design of the spaceplane, allowing it to blaze through the Earth's atmosphere, bringing home millions of euros worth of scientific equipment. It was a technological triumph, but salvaging the European shuttle from the sea also required months of planning. Mission Control Center in Turin, the 11th of February 2015. The mission to send the IXV, the Intermediate Experimental Vehicle, into space was controlled from its own birthplace here in Italy. The 100-minute mission to launch the space shuttle from French Guiana into orbit and bring it back into the atmosphere at high velocity was the make or break moment for the engineers and technicians that had designed and managed the 210 million euro mission from the beginning.
What the IXV is designed to demonstrate is the re-entry into the atmosphere, so returning to Earth from space. Re-entry into the atmosphere is still one of the most delicate aspects of a space mission.
This is the first time that a private company perform a recovery operation like this, because usually it was performed in the past by Neri.
The IXV recovery in the Pacific Ocean was contracted to the Italian salvage company Fratelli Neri, a company with nearly a century of experience in ship salvage. Never before, however, had they salvaged a space plane. The Fratelli Neri have the largest salvage fleet in the Mediterranean Sea and regularly deploy their ships globally on salvage and transport missions. In 2012, they oversaw the debunkering of the Costa Concordia, and in 2013, they provided the equipment to cut up and remove the Gelso M cargo ship from the coast of Syracuse in Sicily. The company possesses the Mediterranean's only fleet of ocean-going fire ships, too.
Nosaris è un supply vessel anchor handling.
The Nosaris is a supply and anchor handling vessel, so a ship designed to support offshore and oil platform operations, and to support all the operations for oil and gas exploration. So ships like these are able to follow a great number of operations.
In order to be able to carry out this special salvage, the company ordered a very special ship to be built. The Nos Arias was built in the shipyards of Shanghai and sailed all the way to Italy in time for the mission. The crew commander on this mission was Roberto Asaro.
La nave è stata acquistata circa un anno fa a febbraio.
The ship was bought from a Chinese shipyard about a year ago in February. It was then transferred to the Italian port of Livorno, where all the special equipment and superstructures required for this mission were mounted.
Carlo Collella is the project manager for Neri and worked closely with the European Space Agency's recovery team. He is responsible for turning the massive tug into a space capsule salvage unit.
The boat arrived in Italy in late April of 2014. We started then to a lot of modification on board, work to install a new crane, and I designed also the cradle where the spacecraft will be positioned after recovery, and the deep tray underneath as a basin which we collect all the fluids that will come out from the spacecraft.
The Noceres is a DP2 standard ship, so it's a ship with a dynamic positioning system whose software automatically moves it in order to maintain a position set by the commander, despite any external influences.
Ciro Pipolo is the head of safety on the ship, which has been designed to face the most extreme fire situations, the main reason this ship was chosen for the mission.
Questo tipo di navi normalmente lavora con le piattaforme petrolifere.
This kind of ship is designed to work with the oil platforms, and it is designed both to provide support to these platforms to carry material, as well as to be a firefighting ship. And we have firefighting equipment that is able to extinguish fires on platforms.
The Nos Aries is a massive tug, 60 meters long and 16 meters wide. It is the largest tug in their fleet. On the 20th of October 2014, the massive tugboat left Genoa on this very special mission and began a transoceanic trek, first to Panama and then the Pacific Ocean, while the IXV made its way separately to the launch pad in French Guiana. Here, France runs its own space center in Kourou, where for decades the legendary Ariane space rockets have been launched from. The IXV is a tiny capsule compared with the American space shuttle, but jam-packed with scientific equipment. It is designed as a lifting body, by which the shape of the capsule itself provides aerodynamic lift, despite being deprived of wings. The IXV carries special instruments to measure the effects of re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere by manned space vehicles. It is a test project that is designed to develop future modes of space transportation. Marie-Christine Contino is the recovery team leader for ESA.
So we are here in Panama because this mission has two phases. One is the launch and re-entry phases, and second is the recovery. So we are the recovery team. We are on board the Nos Aires ship, and this ship is starting to sail to the splashdown area from tomorrow.
Although the launch and spaceflight parts of the mission had been simulated mathematically, the actual recovery of the spaceship was tested earlier at the Salto di Quira Interforce firing range in Sardinia. In June 2013, a mock-up of the space plane was dropped from an altitude of 3,000 meters by a helicopter, falling to gain speed to mimic a space mission before parachute deployment. Parachute deployment was one of the major concerns. Would the flotation balloons pop out? Or might it sink to the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea? As the spaceplane splashed down into the warm Sardinian Sea, the project managers were stunned that the flotation balloons did not pop out. The test mission was training for all the precautions that would have to be carried out in the real splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. The spaceplane would still have highly flammable fuel on board and could spill some of it into the sea, creating a fire hazard for divers and crane operators alike. Parts of the spaceplane could have become dislodged. It was a highly dangerous mission that would require precaution on air, land, and sea. The divers deployed to recover the mock-up first had to recover the expensive parachute and then proceed to discover why the vital flotation apparatus had not worked. They had to cut through the balloon covers and manually activate the balloons to ensure the spaceplane floated while it was recovered. The test flight was a milestone for European space research.
L'operazione è un po' particolare in quanto l'unica problematica che si...
This operation is somewhat special in that the only problem we could encounter during the salvage is the presence of hydrazine. Hydrazine is the propellant fuel that is inside the capsule. However, to face this problem, we have specialized personnel aboard trained to clean out the fuel tanks of the capsule.
Dei serbatoi della navicella.
A year later, on the 23rd of June 2014, the brand new Nos Arias, equipped with a custom-built crane, carried out recovery tests in the sea off Tuscany to verify that the specially engineered ship would actually be able to lift the spacecraft out of the sea and safely deposit the IXV onto its cradle on the mega tug's deck. Once the spaceplane had been delivered to Kourou, the Nos Arias prepared the next phase of the mission and deployed to Panama Port, where it began a series of test runs on its first and primary task: to recover the spaceplane once it had splashed down into the Pacific Ocean. The crew of the ship and the European Space Agency engineers work together to prepare for every possible recovery scenario. Many things can go wrong.
The main difficulty is the point that the propellant of the vehicle is not breathable, so it's a danger for the person. So we implemented all the operation with safety devices for the guys involved.
The ship's safety officer explains how the crew is equipped to handle the dangerous fuel in the IXV.
We have special suits for this type of operation that we will have to wear with breathing equipment, and the problem will be finishing the operation before the breathing apparatus runs out of oxygen. Otherwise, we will have to go back and get a resupply of oxygen.
Altrimenti bisogna rientrare e cambiare l'autorespiratore.
Oh, they will wear suits that are specially built for this kind of fluid, and we wear independent breathing apparatus to be independent from the external atmosphere. All the equipment will be explosion proof, because also the atmosphere could become explosive.
The firefighting equipment on board the Nos Arias is the most advanced of its kind, and the Fratelli Neri crew have been trained to face the most arduous firefighting missions, which every salvage operation needs to be ready for. Toxic and flammable chemicals are often part of the manifests of cargo ships, and salvors have to be ready for every possible catastrophic scenario. In the weeks preceding the IXV launch, the Greek-managed ferry running between Patras and Bari caught fire with a loss of 30 lives, and the local tug service, equipped with hydrants, was still unable to control the flames. Fire is the greatest single hazard in salvage missions, and the Nos Arias crew has trained to respond to it. The crane is designed to lift 8 tons and has an extension of 12 meters, more than any in the Neri fleet.
We have mounted a special crane which has a maximum arm extension of 11 meters, and that is rare on this type of ship, and it was mounted on the ship for this mission only.
We looked for a crane that was able to lift at least 8 tons at 10 meters from the ship, and the requirements asked for a crane capable to operate also in sea state 4. It means up to waves of an height of 2.5 meters.
La gru è un elemento essenziale del recupero della navicella. È una gru.
The crane is the essential element in recovering the capsule. It is an Italian-built crane, so clearly Italian, designed in Italy. It's a hydraulic crane with an arm extension of 12 meters and a lifting capacity of 8.5 tons. It can be operated manually by a driver on the crane or remotely by radio or wire guided.
Radio che è filo guidato.
The NOS Arias is designed to be able to haul huge weights using the specially designed crane, weights that otherwise risk capsizing the ship. As the project manager for Neri Salvage explains, this cannot happen with this advanced vessel.
We performed also stability calculation to verify that with the load on the side, the ship does not heel too much, but anyway, we have the chance to use sea water to ballast one side of the ship and balance the load.
The NOS Arias has been adapted to this mission in many ways that are visible both above decks and in the control room. The main element that is evident on the ship's deck is the firefighting equipment. This special saddle, with an underlying vat, is designed to host the IXV while it is being decontaminated of dangerous hydrazine fuel. The ship's bosun, Francesco De Vita, shows off the major safety features on deck.
Here I have the shower for emergency because hydrazine is very dangerous, and have the shower for emergency, the technician or crew member. After, when I have this space shuttle on board, all is it's ready.
The two dinghies will be used to take the divers to the IXV space capsule floating in the sea. However, finding the capsule in the vast Pacific Ocean with its empty horizons will be tough.
Avremo a bordo anche dei sommozzatori.
We will have divers aboard who will swing into action as soon as the capsule has splashed down, and they will attach flotation balloons, as the capsule might suffer structural damage when it hits the sea, and as a result not float.
E quindi di conseguenza non galleggiare.
We plan to use two fast boats that, with the divers on board, will reach as soon as possible the vehicle that will be floating by its own balloon, and in case of need they can increase the buoyancy of the vehicle, connecting other balloons inflated on board.
This 2-meter diameter antenna is the main instrument that will help the crew find that needle in the Pacific haystack, maybe the toughest job on board, but only part of the mission that cannot fail.
We designed and installed all the equipment of the guys from ESA to take the telemetry data from the spacecraft. So we installed the antenna, all the telemetry kits.
There are two European Space Agency teams on board the NOS Arias mega tug.
So, well, at the moment, what you're looking on the background is the area where we control the naval station, which is installed on the IXV recovery ship. This station will be tracking the last part of the IXV mission before the splashdown into the Pacific Ocean.
One crew acts as the fourth tracking station for the space mission, recovering information from the IXV as it flies through space and monitoring its descent to Earth. Ivano Musso leads the tracking team.
We have prepared this equipment since 2009. We have designed all the systems, and now finally we are here to execute the mission.
The ESA recovery team was led by Marie-Christine Contino.
This mission has three objectives. The first objective is re-entry demonstration validation, and second is technology demonstration, and third is expertise of all these experiments on board.
Mission Control in Turin, in Italy, at the headquarters of Thales Alenia, who built the IXV, will be in contact in real time, not only with the launch site in Guyana, but also the two tracking stations in Africa and the team in the Pacific Ocean. Ivano Musso is the ESA Control Room Director.
From here, we will receive the telemetry from the spacecraft, we will decode it, and we will send all the data in real time to the Mission Control Center in Italy. Then on the center part, we have the antenna control unit, the system that is used to control the antenna. The antenna is designed for the tracking of a spacecraft from a ship, so from a system that is moving. So it is provided with a stabilization system and a very accurate control system that is based on the reception of a real-time trajectory computation from the Mission Control Center from Italy. In the last part of our system, we have an additional equipment for the meteo sounding measurements, and also to provide to the Mission Control Center a real-time video of the recovery operations, because there are several difficult operations that our colleagues will have to do on the spacecraft to make it safe on board the boat.
There are two different kinds of data. One is the data on the experiment inside the spacecraft, and the other data is the data on the status of the subsystems inside the spacecraft. And this is the data that is transmitted to the mission control system for the experts to evaluate how is the mission performing.
Without being able to track the spacecraft, the expensive instrumentation it carries is worthless. Night has fallen on Panama City, and the crew of the Nos Arias is ready to depart on the mission of a lifetime, the first space mission for this salvage company from Italy. Dawn rises over Panama City as the Nos Arias pulls out of port. On the 16th of January 2015, the Nos Arias left its berth in Panama for its position in the Pacific Ocean. Soon the skyline of this commercial hub will fade into the background as the mission to recover the multi-million-dollar European spaceplane gets underway. The goal of this tiny flying capsule is to measure the stresses that a spaceplane re-entering the atmosphere is likely to experience, so that one day in the future, space flight will be made possible. To recover the tiny spaceship in the middle of the Earth's largest ocean, the crew aboard the Nos Arias will be using telemetry and radio data delivered through this 2-meter diameter antenna.
The sailing to the splashdown will be about 2 weeks, and during this phase we will do all the training to prepare for the recovery operation. So this is the first phases. The second phases is the launch chronology, so the day of the launch from Kourou. We will be in direct contact with the Mission Control Center and with Kourou Launch Center, and this is the phases where XV will be launched. We will follow the XV from different stations in the world, and the last phase, which is the re-entry phases and the splashdown phases, we will localize the XV vehicle from the antenna which is on board this ship.
On their way out to the position in the Pacific Ocean, the ESA and Fratelli Neri crews will work together to practice the delicate recovery operations. The ESA tracking team runs simulations directed from the Turin Control Center so that on the day their reactions to any unexpected events is immediate and seamless.
Telemetry kit is the core of the naval station. It is designed to receive the telemetry from the spacecraft, decode it and send the telemetry to the Mission Control Center in Torino. It is also provided of simulation equipments in order to execute a sort of internal test without the involvement of external centers.
During the mission, after the signal acquisition from the antenna, we will receive on the telemetry kit the telemetry data sent from the vehicle. And we will be responsible to record the received telemetries on these two recorders. We will track two frequencies, the vital one and the experiment one. So the two receivers are one for the vital and the other one for the experiment.
Meanwhile, the bosun Francesco De Vita and his team go through the motions of actually picking up the IXV out of the sea and dousing it with fresh water to avoid the fire hazard the deadly fuel represents.
When we have taken out from the water and put it on the boat, it will be safely secured. And then the passivation, what we call the passivation of the vehicle will start. To perform the mission, the vehicle needs tanks from the reaction control system. But then, of course, as it is a high toxic propellant, we are not allowed to leave it in the vehicle for safety reasons.
The big day has arrived. The 11th of February 2015. The IXV has been prepared for this key mission to test the technologies developed for future space planes. In this unique mix of space and nautical adventures, operations in Kourou, in French Guiana, launch pad of the European Space Agency's IXV, are already underway. Once sealed in its protective fairing, the IXV is transferred to the mobile gantry for integration with Vega. The mobile gantry is rolled back for liftoff.
IXV is a re-entry demonstrator, so we will launch from Kourou, and after the separation we will have a small ballistic phase which goes over Africa until into the Pacific, where the actual re-entry will take place. And we will pick it up then from the ship out of the ocean.
Quando uno spazioplano tipo shuttle, tipo Soyuz, rientra.
When a space plane such as the shuttle or Soyuz re-enters the atmosphere, it undergoes a massive braking effect. It goes from 7,000 or 8,000 kilometers a second to a speed that is suitable for landing. It is an incredibly hard braking effect that produces extremely high temperatures on the outside of the shuttle or Soyuz.
Delle superfici dello shuttle della Soyuz, temperature elevatissime.
The IXV is crammed with measuring instruments which will be key not only in navigating the spacecraft, but also transmitting information back to Earth in real time as it dives through the atmosphere and is subject to extreme temperatures. The IXV has been specially designed to be a compromise between a spaceplane and a traditional capsule. The European Space Agency has used both the Russian Soyuz space capsules and the US Space Shuttle as transport to the International Space Station that circles the Earth. Indeed, the tragic breakup of the shuttle Columbia on re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere shows how fragile space planes can be. In 6 space missions in his career, astronaut Roberto Vittori has been subject to the massive forces that are measured in multiples of force of gravity, or Gs.
I have flown 3 times aboard the Soyuz and aboard the shuttle, and I can say they are tough moments both for the machine and for the people inside it. Re-entry with the Soyuz is approximately 4G. Re-entry with the shuttle is 2 or 2.5. It is the stage that, as we have seen with the Columbia shuttle accident, there is still a lot to be known, and that is why atmospheric demonstrators such as the IXV are important and will continue to be important.
Sono importanti e continueranno a essere importanti.
The IXV is a lifting body without wings, but with control paddles that allow for some maneuvering in space via remote control from mission control in Turin.
XV per il futuro
In the future, or at least as far as the development opportunities in Europe for the IXV are concerned, it will be important to give it wings, because without wings, we are forced to land attached to a parachute, which minimizes the advantage of being able to fly fast.
Minimizza il vantaggio del poter viaggiare velocemente.
Mission Control is at the Thales Alenia headquarters in Turin, Italy. Here, engineers from all over Europe will track the different phases of the mission and monitor the data transmitted back to Earth in real time.
Roughly after 20 minutes, there will be a separation from the launcher. Then we will pick up the signal from a ground station in the west of Africa, in Libreville, in Gabon. So we can see the switch on of the vehicle, we can see the activation of the onboard systems. This will be followed by a station pass in the east of Africa from Malindi, where we see the continuation of these activities. And we will also, from this point onwards, have a good estimate where the actual splashdown will occur.
By 1 p.m., it's all systems go. Countdown is interrupted for a short while before resuming. There is a small window of time in which weather and light conditions are good enough for launch. The Nos Arias crew regularly send weather balloons up to gather data to send back to the launch pad in Kourou. The whole operation is dependent on the good weather at the launch and splashdown locations.
L'unica difficoltà che possiamo incontrare sono le condizioni meteo, perché essendo
The only difficulty that we might encounter are the weather conditions, because as it is an object that is a little delicate and fragile, it is important not to damage the capsule's structure. So as a result, a factor that will influence operations will be the weather. But in order to better handle this, the company has entered into agreements with weather stations which allow us to get weather updates even up to just 6 minutes before the capsule splashdown. So we will be analyzing the meteorological data and give the go-ahead for the launch.
dovremmo dare il benestare per il lancio.
After a short hitch in the countdown, the Italian-built Vega rocket with the IXV lodged safely in its fairing is launched successfully.
Allumage P80, décollage.
However, this is just the beginning of the mission. In these ESA simulations, the 3 most delicate phases of the launch are described. After just 2 minutes, the first stage Vega rocket falls back to Earth. Then after 3.5 minutes from launch, the second stage rocket detaches from the fairing, and finally the fairing itself separates 30 seconds later with the IXV flying autonomously, kept on course by its own rocket and paddle controls. An hour after launch, it begins falling to Earth. This is the moment of truth for the whole design and control team. Data is streaming to mission control, and then all of a sudden there is a blackout, normal for re-entry.
Well, many things can go wrong because it's an experimental vehicle. So everything is prepared and tested, of course. And from all what we know, things are done in a way that nothing much shall go wrong. But of course we don't know, and this is why we're experimenting with it.
A few nerve-wracking minutes, and the space plane is transmitting again. There is no indication of the state of the spacecraft at that time, but when splashdown occurs, the elation in mission control is visible. Now, will the European Space Agency IXV sink to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, or float with the aid of its flotation balloons? Soon the world will know. The mission to recover the IXV from the Pacific Ocean has taken 3 years to prepare, but only 2 hours to finish. The The spaceship begins its descent into the Earth's atmosphere as its instruments collect data on the performance of new materials in the heat-resistant tiles and monitor the thermodynamics of the tiny craft. Back in Turin, where Mission Control is monitoring the progress of the IXV, all the data collected is processed and passed on to the Nos Arias, telling the crew and ESA team where to search for it in the wide open ocean.
From the Mission Control Center, they will send us all the data from the vehicle before it will splash down. So they will provide us information very, very important for right operation on the spot, because they know if the parachute will open or if flotation balloon has opened. So we can prepare as a consequence of what they will say to us.
There is another system to indicate where we should go and look for it. This other system is, let's say, is managed by another team, which is the recovery team, that should take care of the recovery operations and getting the vehicle back on board.
As it plummets through the atmosphere, it is slowed down from 17,000 kilometers per hour to just Mach 2, or approximately 2,000 kilometers an hour. The atmosphere further slows it down to speeds that allow its parachutes to deploy, and then the IXV splashes down into the ocean just north of the equator near the Galapagos Islands. Celebrations erupt all over the world, from Kourou to Turin, as the speedboat crews prepare for action. On the Nos Arias, the ESA team identifies it first by radar, then by telemetry, and as soon as it splashes down, 2 speedboats are sent with divers to scout it out. What will they find? Will it be afloat? Will the sea round it be covered in deadly hydrazine? The team in Turin waits with bated breath.
Once we know that the ship is safe for the people to go there, then we start the recovery operation. Will be to take the vehicle out of the water and to put it on the ship. Then we will store the vehicle safely on its cradle, which is already prepared here. And once everything is done, then we will start the decontamination of the vehicle.
In seguito alla
Once the capsule hit the water, the Nos Aries sailed towards the splashdown area where the divers and specialized personnel had already carried out the first phase, the initial approach, and they had made the vehicle safe.
Gli operatori specializzati che hanno eseguito la fase iniziale, il primo approccio e la messa in sicurezza del veicolo.
Once they arrive at the site, the divers are able to ascertain that the spaceship is indeed floating, that the balloons have deployed, and that the sea is safe. They wait for the Nos Arias to approach. Now, they attach slings to the spaceship, and the special crane mounted aboard the Italian tug ship raises it to deck. The decontamination squad is ready and waiting.
Domenico, controllo pressione.
Abbiamo approcciato appunto il veicolo che galleggiava.
We approached the vehicle that was floating on the starboard side of the ship. Slings were placed under it on the starboard side, and they were very tense moments.
In una fase che può sembrare abbastanza concitata.
They may have lasted just a few seconds, but it seemed a very long time as the capsule swung quite a lot, due to the ocean waves that were quite high. But eventually the capsule was placed on the saddle located on the deck and fastened down adequately.
Sulla sella che era posizionata in coperta ed è stato assicurato tutto al ponte in maniera adeguata.
The safety crew douses the spaceship with water to dilute the propellant and secures it to the specially designed cradle. The hydrazine is purged from the vehicle and it is prepared to return to base. Back in Turin, astronaut Roberto Vittori comments.
We saw today with the launch of IXV that it took off from South America and in an hour and 40 minutes reached close to the coast of California, so a very short space of time. But there was need for a ship to go and recover it. So it is clear that the two aspects contradict each other. The speed of travel on the one hand and the complexity of recovery on the other. It's only with wings that we can ensure that the craft can land and also that it can be reused.
Once rendered safe to access, the team from Thales Alenia and the ESA can approach the space plane and extract the invaluable data collection cards that gathered the information that the IXV was sent into space to collect. As the Nos Arias tug plows the ocean waves to return to Europe, the success of the €210 million mission can be measured by the results obtained. There is cause for celebration.
Nei giorni successivi l'equipe del personale francese.
In the following days, the French team carried out the pacifization of the vehicle, so they extracted the propellant fuel that was in the fuel tanks and the circuits of the capsule and put it in a special container where it was pacified using hydrogen peroxide to make it harmless for the ship and for the personnel.
In maniera da renderlo inerme per la sicurezza sia dell'imbarcazione che del personale.
On the 21st of March 2015, the Nos Arias pulled into Livorno to dock again alongside the other Fratelli Neri tugs and fireships, ready for the next mission. Aboard was the IXV in its container, which was ferried back to Turin. The IXV is just one more step in the development of a viable spaceplane concept for suborbital travel. There are still many phases left. The Nos Arias has joined the Neri fleet in Livorno and was immediately sent off to another mission to salvage a Turkish ship that sank off the coast of Ravenna. But this is another story.